This is George from High Tech Legion. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Zalman CNPS9900DF. The 9900DF is part of Zalman's radial cooling line, which we've seen from them in the past. It actually uses a radial CPU cooler which actually surrounds the fan, whereas typically we're used to seeing a square type CPU cooler. The radial CPU cooler actually makes very, very good use of the space that is allotted to it. Taking a look at the 9900DF, has a 120mm fan up front and has a 140mm fan in the center. Interesting setup. The 120mm fan is a 12-volt fan which spins at 1000 RPM. It is not a variable speed fan, whereas the center fan is a PWM fan, which is going to vary from 700 to 1400 RPM. So taking a look, as you can see, the fans actually, well, the front fan actually sits into the heat sinks themselves, whereas the center fan sits between the two towers. The towers are, of course, radial, as we said, and taking a look, the heatsink on the front, all of your blades are in a straight line and in a radial array. Going around the back, you have a different design altogether with a V shape. This is going to allow for more surface area to the actual fins themselves as they go around. By using the V, you get more surface area, better heat dissipation. You've got either 3 or 6 heat pipes, depending on how you're going to look at it. In a standard cooler, we'd call it 6, but it's actually 3 continuous. You've got one going through the front, comes up, goes around, and returns, and ends in the back. Whereas in the rear tower, you've got 2 of the heat pipes, which typically we would call 4 in a standard type cooler because they would not be meeting. So you've got 2 radial in the back. You're going to get good amounts of air going over the heat pipes, and you've got the fins in such a way that they are going to be in the most direct contact with the pipe itself. Moving on, you see the fins, or I should say the fans, are on their own mounts and are pretty much free floating. They're not actually attached to the tower. Going down, got a mirror finish on the bottom, and the 2 fan connectors, as we said, one 3-pin and a 4-pin PWM for the center fan. Really interesting concept from Zalman. Also, the heat pipes themselves are their triple alloy, using the combination of the radial axial and sintered metal heat pipe. We've seen in the past this makes for some great heat dissipation. Taking a look at the accessory kit for the 9900DF, first start with the user's manual. Now, the user's manual for the 9900DF is very complete, but I will suggest you read it through thoroughly for whatever mounting you're going to be using. Zalman has had a habit in the past, and going through this one, same thing again. The manual kind of jumps all over the place. Make sure you read through first on the section that you are going to be using, whether it be Intel 2011, 1155, 1156, 1366, or AM2, AM3. Read through it, get yourself familiar. There are good pictures, but as I say, it does jump all over this place as far as instructions. So go through it. Taking a look at the kit itself. Universal backplate, Intel and AMD kits. You've got your isolating material for the backplate for Intel, AMD, and for socket 775 as well. You've got a full tube of Zalman's top-of-the-line super thermal grease, the ZM-STG2. You've got all of your mounting hardware, as well as a Zalman name tag. The mounting tool itself, which of course is just an Allen key, but extended so that you can reach around and get into place. Also, you do have a Y connector for the 2 fans, which will go to a PWM fan header and plug in the 4 and the 3-pin fan connectors of the 120 and the 140. The CNPS9900DF is definitely a cooler that's going to get some attention on the inside of your case. Really a unique looking cooler with the radial shape, the 2 blue LED fans, 120mm, 140mm in the center, 1000 RPM on the front with the variable speed PWM 140 in the center. Obviously the radial shape of the fins themselves, as well as the 2 different shapes to the fins, providing more surface area for better heat dissipation. Mirror finish on the bottom of the nickel-plated copper cooling block, and 2 8mm heat pipes radial running through the rear tower, 1 8mm radial heat pipe running through the front. Really interesting piece from Zalman, the 9900DF. Installed in the case, the CNPS9900DF obviously has a very different look. With the rounded edges, obviously, the center fan fully exposed. Very nice blue LEDs. It even has a very different sound. As far as the silent part, it definitely has that covered. It's very quiet, but also has a very inoffensive sound compared to most coolers. Taking a look, you've got good working room around it. However, it does block the first RAM slot and does infringe onto the second RAM slot. Depending on the layout of your motherboard, you may have a lot of trouble trying to use any taller RAM with it, as it may interfere with the actual fan. But not the easiest installation in the world, that's for sure. It was actually a very difficult installation, but once it's in, good looking cooler in the case.